Hello, welcome to Fridays at 5. I'm Karen Taylor of the Color Vowel Chart. I want to say hi to Jennifer over there. Hi, Jennifer. Yeah, we are so glad to have all of you back after a few months away from our weekly, what used to be a weekly meeting on Fridays. Our Fridays at 5 is now sort of reinvented and it's moved to a new location, but it's still just up here in the cloud. And so it's easy, isn't it? We're in a new location in the sense that we've launched our new website. We want to give you a couple minutes, just a quick orientation of that for any viewers who are watching this after the recording. For those of you that are here live, I have a quick poll for you. Raise your hand if you arrived through our learning platform, the Fridays at 5 little card. Did you make it through there? Yeah, Jesselyn, great. Melissa, Paula, wonderful. Raise your hand if you found us through our Facebook community, our private Facebook community. Yeah. Okay, so I did post the link there. That's our private community for teachers who own a copy of our book, just to make everybody clear on what that one is. But our learning platform is open to everybody, and that's why we'll always be encouraging you to know about the platform. When I say platform, Jennifer, can you help us out with a quick visualization of what we're talking about?
Sure. And of course, I closed that window, so I got to open that window up again. Jeez,
we are here to talk about color vowel organizers, don't forget, but we do want to be sure everybody feels oriented. So we'll take just a couple minutes as people are still joining the room. Okay. Meanwhile, as Jennifer gets prepared to show us.
I'm prepared. I'm prepared now.
Okay. Do use the chat if you brought with you an idea for leveraging those color vowel organizers. So if you're planning to share an idea or just a recent thing that you did with color vowel organizers, today's topic, just send that in the chat to me so that I know you have something to say. And meanwhile, let's do our quick little review orientation. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. So our new learning platform, we have, I'm going to say my line, we're not in Canvas anymore. We have moved. I can do that one more time. Okay. So anyway, we are almost finished migrating all of our courses from Canvas, free for teachers, to our new space, which is learn.colorvowel.com. So if at any time you're interested in training with us, whether it be level 1, level 2, or level 3, whether it's a webinar, a workshop, everything is going to be available here at learn.colorvowel.com. When you are back on the website, and I can't remember what the link is. Is it courses, Karen? Is it training? Anyway, you click on it and it will take you here. And we will always try to have the latest and greatest thing up on this homepage, but you can scroll down and here's that interactive calendar that used to live at the top of the training page on our old website. So if you click on right down here at the bottom, that's where you'll see that interactive calendar. 2023 courses and schedule will be up pretty soon, I promise. And then go to up here at the top. If you click on browse, you will see you can see all of our courses and click through those. You can let your learners know that we do offer a few things for learners, and this is where you can get to pure English practice. I'll be updating this community soon too, so it'll work just like the community that you've joined to get to this Fridays at 5. We have our fundamentals workshop series, and there's an announcement about that in the teachers community, but this is where you can register for 1, 2, or all 3 of the workshops. It's not too late to get the September one because you can still watch the recordings if you purchase that. And then we have our level 1 courses and bundles, so basics or the practicum to get your certification. Level 2, both core and electives and our practicums. We have our coaching practicum starting in just another week or so. And then we will soon, as soon as we get our 2023 calendar up, you'll see another group of our level 3 courses and bundles. So there you go. Just click around. It's really pretty easy to understand. And once you sign up for one course, you'll get oriented. All the courses look the same, just like they did in Canvas. So there you go. We're pretty excited just because it's a one-stop shop. So you come, you pick the course you want, you pay for it right here. And it's pretty easy to use.
Hey, thank you, Jennifer. If you have any questions, please post those over in the chat for Jennifer. I want to welcome Fanny back. She was getting oriented to her headphones, so that's great. All right. Our topic today is color vowel organizers. And because I always hate talking in a vacuum and I love all of you, I'd like to use the chat for just a second and just see when was the last time you used a color vowel organizer and what kinds. Give me an example of a word that you and your students put in there. So, 2 weeks ago, 1 day ago, maybe never. I hope, to see more like yesterday, but just put in there, when did you use one? And unleavened, my goodness, what a great word, Paula. That's a nice way to post it. 1:30 today, unleavened was the word that they entered in there. Okay. Fantastic. And I saw a note, by the way, Melissa, I'll ask you and Paula to share your thoughts, having just used CVO. So that's great. So Melissa used today, morsel. I'm getting hungry. We got to have our potluck on Fridays if we're going to keep going like this. Jennifer, you're doing that all on Google Sheets. Great. We're going to, if you could have yours ready to kind of show what that one looks like, that'd be really cool. Okay. Any other times you've used a color vowel organizer? If you're wondering what is exactly a color vowel organizer, I could show you, this one piece of paper that is called the organizer, but it's really very flexible as a concept. And so it could be a word wall that you keep at your school, that your students are always able to look at and contribute to. But it's often this document that we put in learners' hands and that we also offer visually. So today we'll spend time with those kinds of examples. One more quick jump over to our website as you continue sharing. Here on our website, if you're new to color vowel, you can always download your own organizer right down here as you come down. I do believe we've got downloadable organizer right here next to my smiling face. We might switch that out for some other graphic someday, but for now, just look for me smiling at you, and there's the organizer. That's a nice way to get tapped into our organization, Color Vowel, so that you receive our upcoming newsletters and so forth. Okay. The other place, if you are a Color Vowel teacher and you've already gained access to the Color Vowel digital library, this is something that's only available to level 1 certified and above teachers. So if you're trained, you have access to the library with a password. And when you get in there, which I can because I know the password, we've got a lot of CVOs available. This is more like news up here. But if you come down, I just want you to know we have the blank organizer for you. I'm actually loading a new one up today, a couple different formats, but we have a lot of prepared topics, and I'll be coming back to this later in this session. But if you haven't seen this yet and you have access to the library, or if you think you should have access to the library and don't know that password, talk to Jennifer in private and we'll be sure that we get that to you. Okay. So just know that those are there for you. But I'm going to stop share there and start with just the most basic, sort of what is a CVO. Hi, Shirley. Hey, before I start, greetings. So Shirley's here and she's my co-author. We've been working with Color Vowel organizers since the very beginning, right? And I'd say like back a long time ago, probably 2010, I found some old ones not too long ago. And we used to call them my color vowel word list. That's what we used to call it, my color vowel word list, which seems like a nice name. But we changed it to organizer. And I think this is a great segue into today's topic. We changed it to organizer at a time when I was really sensitive to the ideas around mental organization, like how we learn, how we organize information. And you who know me and have worked with me know, I was a mother of young children at that time, and my kids were working with, especially with speech and occupational therapists. And so there's a lot about organization that they just kept sort of knocking on my door with this idea of organization. I was like, it's something more than having a planner. I realized it's something deeper that has to do with how we sort of mentally see what we know, how we organize it. And I thought about English, what's tricky about spoken and written English is that gap between how it looks and how it sounds. And Shirley and I started looking at these as these organizers, or these word lists at the time, as a way to create that link between the way it looks and the way it sounds. So the organizer is what I'll call a little o organizer, like a planner or being organized, but it's also a big O organizer, like how do I categorize this word? How do I think of this word? How do I hear this word? And that's what we do with the organizer. So welcome to anyone who's coming into the room just now. We're really just getting started with our topic because we're kind of warming up. So welcome to you. The first kind of organizer that I'd like to show you is just this very simple object. Let me find here we go. I'm using my document camera. So this is an organizer, and this is the back side. We offer this in many different formats, but this is sort of our keystone format. This is the launch pad that we have in our shop. It's a great first lesson, a first way into introducing color vowels to your students. And it's actually a much larger document than you see here. If I kind of move my camera up for a minute so you can see that. So it's a one-page object. Sorry for all the moving. And on the back side, after we've oriented students to the color vowel chart and how it helps us make sense of words that might all look different but sound the same, and words that might, hold on here, that might all look the same with the same letter, but actually have different vowel sounds. That's the front side. The back side is their very first organizer. So there it is, right? And I think what makes an organizer is that we have these categories one way or another. So for example, I know that Fanny, you're an elementary school teacher, right? And so in an elementary school, if you're working with first or second graders, this piece of paper and the idea of holding a pen and writing in pretty small letters is not going to be the way a first grader rolls, right? They're not doing this kind of fine motor skill work. So think of the organizer as a template for your wall, right? That you're going to have a section of your word wall that is green tea, another section that is white tie. And so we have a lot of different formats that we've seen teachers innovate. We also provide a lot of different guidance for you to create your own. And Melissa, I know you and Paula, you too, you have photos, I think, of some of your word walls that show the organizer in that kind of format. So if you want to look around for those, I'll ask you to share those in a little while, okay? And anyone else who has an example of a word wall. I know, Doug, you've been doing some really neat work with your classrooms with adults. So if you happen to have anything, let me know. But the organizer, one way or another, is going to, let us organize words so that these words like women and wow have a place, and we can start to understand and think of those words in new ways. Okay. So that's just the basic of what an organizer is. Any questions or comments so far? You're welcome to let me know. All right. Today's topic, though, now coming back into our most focused part of the day, we're going to make the most of these CVOs. If we're not careful, we're just collecting words and we're not doing enough with them to really leverage what they're supposed to do. And so today, I'm actually bringing you 4 tips for leveraging color vowel organizers, but you all are going to bring the 5th and the 6th and the 10th. I know you have lots of great ideas. So I'll keep my part, pretty succinct, and then we'll move into contributions from our participants today. Okay. The Cvo Essentials, I think I've pretty much reviewed them, but let me say a couple things. One is this object is something that you actually have to make available. So, if you're teaching online, you have to think, where do I keep this color vowel organizer so that I can easily share it with my students? Make sure that you have it easily available to them in your learning platform or to you in your own drive, your own, say your files, so that you know where to find it easily. It shouldn't be something you always have to go looking for. Be sure you're using these consistently. This would be a daily tool. This is not a boutique activity. This is where they put their words every single day. Anything that's new, anything that draws their curiosity, that they had a question about, you just put it in the organizer. Be sure that they're always using the underlining protocol. And, that's kind of a fancy term, but I'm going to show you what I mean. If students are writing words in boxes without any underlinings, they won't know where the stress is necessarily. And they won't know where to cue themselves with their hand to know how long to hold that vowel sound, which is so important. We know that. So plan to spot check your students' CVOs. Be sure you do a little quality check every once in a while. Maybe ask yourself right now, when was the last time you just said, oh, hey, I want your CVOs, I'll give them back tomorrow. And if you just select, a fraction of the number you collect and just spot check, you now know that you have some feedback you can give to the whole class. So you don't have to correct every one of them, okay? And I'm just checking our comments over here. Great. Oh, are you not seeing my screen? No? Let me fix that. Thank you for telling me. Let's double check that. What happened? All right, that's a mystery to me. Let's try it again. Here we go. Can we see my screen now? Yeah. Great, thank you.
Karen,
And
it
that
might
was a
just be something with my computer. I'm not seeing it.
All right.
I know what
All
it
right.
looks like.
All right, mouse around, see if you can figure that out. But if anyone can't see, let me know, do. All right. And finally, be sure that the way that one basic way you're going to leverage these collections of words is to find that moment at the end of the activity or the end of class to choose a color and flood. So let me show you what we're talking about here. Here are 2 CVOs. One is on the left from, it's a close-up of an older CVO. You can kind of see how the format is different. But it's a low, I want to say that was a beginning class of adult education. That one I collected right here in New Mexico. The one on the right is, I think, a high intermediate student. And I visited that classroom in DC. And so these are both really good examples of color vowel organizers where the student is adding words. However, I'm going to ask you now questions. So you can open up your mic if you just want to answer quickly. Which one is going to be easier to use for practicing spoken English? The left one or the right one? Which one will be easier to use for saying words out loud and practicing? Just sort of in your opinion.
The left one has consistent underlining.
Ah, okay. Now, Jesselyn, tell me, so you noticed that. Yeah. Yeah, there's some consistent underlining right over here, and we want to check it for quality, right? We might find some errors, but I would say the left is easier to read for practice because the student is actually using a list. You see how on the left they're using kind of a list approach. On the right, we have to read across and then wrap around a little more like a paragraph, right? So if we look at the silver pin box, for example, or better, the gray day box, vegetation, Jamaican, Australia, pronunciation, Malaysia, you can practice with me, changes, participation, exchange, today, vaccination. I can do this, but if my learners are struggling in any way with pronunciation, it makes it a little bit easier if they kind of create a left-right list like this. So you can think, what do I think is most effective? Let your students know what you want them to do. And if you think that they're able to flood and use these words easily in the way that we see on the right, that's okay too, okay? But underlining is important. Jesselyn, what did you notice exactly?
Just that the right side had there was some words, possible, parsley, that don't have any underlines. So when if I was going to do a spelling exploration next, I'd be like, what do we do with this?
Yeah. Good. So we want to maybe remind students at the end of a given day, just go back and check that you've underlined the right letters, just sort of catch up. It might be the kind of thing where they write them down quickly and forget to underline and just do a little bit of a sweep at the end of the day, right?
Or Karen, if you look at the orange door on the right one, they kind of sort of just underlined a syllable. Both of those words are confusing because of that.
That's right. So before, they underline the whole for. And so doing a little spot check and inviting them to ask, what should I underline? What should I underline? Make that a little known chunk of language. What should I underline in before? Jesselyn.
What should I underline in before, Karen? Is it the O-R or just the O? I actually had this question. I don't know if this is the right time, but.
It is the right time. It's perfect. We actually, I don't know if you remember, Shirley and Jennifer, we had a summit. We had an actual summit of the kind of color Vowel authors and administrators about 3 years ago to finally decide about Orange Door. And you'll see here, right here in the organizer, that we have indicated what to do. So the R is included in the markup, the underline for orange words and for purple words. Okay. Now, if you are, and you know that this is a slightly older version, don't let that bother you. But in our newest version, let me just show you what that might look like with before. I'll stop share on that. And instead, let's just practice a little bit. So here we are on our newest version and what will remain our solid version. We could take a word like before. And if we put it in Orange Door, we'll underline both. However, if you are a speaker of English who hears before as an Auburn word, and if you use Auburn, that's another choice. You might be somebody who has Auburn in their dialect, but uses orange because you're comfortable with it. And this comes down to the teacher. Okay. But if it's down here in Auburn as well, we underline only the O. Okay, and that's because then it's an R moving vowel before, and we basically let the purple be where it goes. So Orange Door is like a very handy, convenient place to put those R-controlled Auburn words, if you have Auburn or Rose. And that's about as much as I'll say there, okay? But let me give a couple more since we have this out and we're talking about underlining. Be aware that you yourself, we expect you to have questions. And that's why we have communities where you can ask questions, right? So don't be hesitant or shy about asking or looking in the Blue Canoe Dictionary or in our desktop browser extension. That's another place. Jennifer, if you have a chance, could you just provide a link to the page in Blue Canoe that where folks can learn about the browser extension. That'd be great. So
Karen, I
there you
have a
can find-
question.
Yeah,
What about the final E in before?
great. Okay, good question. Yeah. So these are what we call edge cases. And that's when I would turn right back around and say to Shirley, you know, we can talk it out. Like, what would be the implication of underlining the E versus not underlining the E? And you have a really good point. Because we're trying to create a sense that if we cover up a certain part of the word and we replace it with the vowel, what will we get here? Orange door or before. And if we leave the E not underlined here, what are we implying?
That it has another sound there.
Yeah, another syllable. Like what?
Yeah.
How would it sound?
Before-y.
Before-y or before-a. So I agree with you. And there is a bit of an art to this, because remember, the protocol is to underline, sorry about my handwriting, it's getting worse and worse. Underline the stressed vowel letter or letters, right? So you're looking for that concept here. If R is a vowel in this case, which it is, then they're continuous, vowel, 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 and we'll underline all of them. Jesselyn, how do you feel about that? I'm watching your
I
expressive.
love it. If R is a vowel, it's just a great quote. Thank you. Good on the note,
Oh,
good for
okay,
the
there we
notes.
go. Yeah, we're so accustomed to thinking of R as a consonant. So, you know, that's always the reminder. Thank you, Shirley. Oh, that was great. Well, here's another good one. How about the word request? Request. Request, request, request. We hear the red in there. So we can put it here in request, and I'll zoom in so you can really see what I'm doing here. Here's request. I love handwriting, by the way, even though it's getting worse all the time. I spend so much time typing, but the beautiful thing about handwriting is it really has you interacting with the same hand you're usually using for the open hand, and then you're down here writing, and it's just so brain-based. It's so powerful. So where's the stress in request? Is it request or request? Request, yeah. We know it's the E. What do we do with the U? Any thoughts? So if the R in before was behaving as a vowel, sorry, right down here. If this is behaving as a vowel sound, how is the U behaving in request?
Like
I
a
think-
W.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
another syllable, and this between U and the E, there is an invisible W.
Yeah,
So
and so in this exactly now, it might not actually be so invisible. It's more like here, we could either say, we could say it's an invisible W and do
Mm.
this, or
West, West. I think between U and E, no.
yeah, so here it would be tempting to say, oh, there's the invisible W, but I
Mhm.
actually prefer this because the U is really behaving as a vowel, as a
Yes.
consonant.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's why
So-
I underline just the E.
Me too, exactly.
Okay.
So we're trying to think like from the rule to what it really looks like. We have to sort of ask ourselves, how is this letter behaving? And we end up red pepper request. Okay. And I had one more example, which is the word I, like the I that you see with I, a nice white tie word. So here's our white tie I. What should I underline? Paula, you're looking kind of forlorn. You're like, what? What do you think?
I'm thinking maybe all of it, because it's
Yeah.
just one continuous sound.
Especially if we kind of remind ourselves, I love the icons for this reason. If we think of white, tie, I, you know, the fact that they sound exactly the same tells you, you know, that these two things are the same. That is the sound I. And it's a lot like the E at the end of before. You know, that third E or that third letter is following a Y that's behaving as a vowel sound. There's no I yet in there. Yeah, it's just I. Beautiful. All right. So spending some time with your organizers and just doing quality assurance, quality checks with your students and teaching them how to ask those questions is a wonderful way to leverage your organizer. Make it not just a task. It's actually a way to raise curiosity. Any final thoughts on that comment? No? Okay, let's move on and know also that you expect students to make errors. You expect little mistakes that are sort of gives you insight, right? So when you find, for example, I see a lot of errors in here. I see these as beautiful errors that I want to follow up on and see if they're maybe reflective of how the learner's hearing the word. So look around for these opportunities and give feedback. Okay. My third thought is to assess learners' working vocabulary. And here, this is sort of a different way of leveraging the organizer. We think of it now as let's put our words in it. But if you tap into your students' working vocabulary, you can kind of see what they already know together. And they can say, wow, we know a lot together. And we know how these words sound even, or maybe we don't. So we can make adjustments and corrections together and have this be a much more cooperative activity than the conventional way of going about it. Okay. It's wonderful for topic-based lessons, and we're going to do one together right now. Especially, let me just see if I can get out of my sharing here. And one moment, there we go. I'm going to move us over to a shared document so that we can work on it together. And we're going to decide on a topic together. For example, if we decided we want to know what we collectively know about cooking, just as an example, start thinking, what do you know about cooking? And the words that are involved in cooking. And I'm giving you now a link to everybody. So for a moment, we're all going to be students in the room, right? And you're clicking on the link in the chat, please, to enter this collective color vowel organizer just for today. And we'll make the topic everything we know, what do we know about cooking? Okay, that's the topic. And we're going to stick with, one or two words, but you're welcome right now, everybody, to put your cursor down here. Try not to put it up in where the green T is. It's actually a separate file, but put it here. And for example, I might say, I know that you can saute things, right? And I'll put it there and I will underline my EE. So go right ahead. And if you see a word already, then don't type it twice. I'm going to give us just maybe 1 minute. Let's see how full it can be after 1 minute. It's so fun to watch it. And I'm going to go ahead and share screen so that everybody can see this in the recording. Okay, here it is. We're already getting so full of words. Boil and broil and oil. And I would encourage everybody to say these words as they're writing them, sort of to check and to flood, like double check. Teaspoon, deep fried, or teaspoon, ingredients, steam, deep fried. Is it deep fried? Deep fried. I'm not sure. Whisk, saute, tablespoon, broil, oil. Okay, a lot of fun stuff going on here. And what are the tools? What's everything we know about cooking? What are the tools that we use? Over here, I might put oven and add my little underline. Okay. I'm going to make this a little bigger for our audience to see. There we go. I might use a mitt. I'm going to put my mitt in here. I might use tongs. Do I have tongs anywhere? Tongs. I have a saucepan. Do you have any special gadgets that you like to use? Little tools? For example, you might have a
Garlic press.
colander, a garlic press. Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason I can't type on this. I don't know why, but
Oh, okay. You might be looking at the shared screen and there's another one hiding. That's one of the little challenges of teaching online, but you can watch mine and tell me words, surely.
okay.
Colander. And then someone else might be saying, what's a colander? Right? Or you might have something, see what we have going. Good. So that was about a minute and a half right there. And I get a sense of what my learners in this group know and bring to the table. I could probably do a lot with this list, right? I can now ask questions like, I know at least one person knows what a whisk is, right? What's a whisk? And we could open up that dialogue and start to answer that question. You could even start using this with their hard copy organizer that they have, and they can be writing them down as we talk about each one, right? So many different ways. Any other thoughts? How could we immediately start using this for speaking? Because we've just spent a minute and a half writing. Now we want to speak. What else could we do? I'm going to stop share. I'm going to look at you. So you now have collected words that somebody in the room knows. Maybe everybody has contributed at least one word, but maybe somebody hasn't written anything. But they've seen all these words come up. So now what can we do with that? Any ideas?
We can flood or do an on-the-spot chant. Maybe if a word was like surprising to students, then do a quick chant with that word.
Yeah, well, and especially, exactly. And you can also, if you're not sure if everybody knows these words, that might be tricky, right? So remember, this is a collective, like a collage in a way. And if they don't know what the word means, it's harder to make flooding meaningful. But if we take it as a kind of a starter, we can start to activate maybe dialogue about this. So who likes to cook? Now you have words they can actually look at to answer these questions. So sort of an activator activity, right?
Karen, I
maybe
might, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I might
No.
take, if I had some pictures prepared, especially if we were going towards a certain subset of that vocabulary, I might take pictures and see if they could start matching up words from the organizer to the pictures and then see which pictures still didn't have labels. And so we would then work together to see if we could, is it a matter they just couldn't remember that, they didn't remember when we were brainstorming, or is it that nobody knows what that thing is, like a spatula?
Yeah. Dorley.
Would you not, as a first thing, make sure that we know how to say all those words, even if we're not flooding or anything else, but just going through, so that we hear each one of those words? If I'm a new student and I know only 3 of those words, so that I get the sound in my head and realize why it's in that box and not some other box. Would that not be something as a first step?
Definitely. We want to have a little bit of time. This particular activity, we have to remember there may be errors in here, right? We in the room, we just entered these words really accurately, most likely, right? But your students may have asked or not have asked, and they may have just entered words where they thought they should go. So then you'll find a word like bowl down in olive sock. So we were not ready quite to flood or to make it a done deal. But I think this is the beginning of you saying, my students know all these words, at least some, or collectively they know these words. This is where they think they go. And now I can at least activate that dialogue and then compare it to the target vocabulary for this unit that we're using, and then add to them these additional words. So it's kind of just a way to match what's in their mind before I say, open up to page 22, the unit on, let's cook together, or what have you. I'm kind of, pretending as if I'm teaching from a book. It doesn't have to be that way. But that point's important. You don't know for sure these are actually well placed yet. So we could go through and see. It's been very, on the early side to immediately check, but we could if we felt like the class was up to it. Any other thoughts on that? Julian, spoon. I'm seeing little things. These are fun. I want to underline spoon. Okay. So just kind of
Karen, how about Julianne? Is Julianne in the right place?
Yeah. So who wants, how do we say Julianne? Julianne, I've just said it, Julianne, when I think of carrots as Julianne, is a kind of cutting, right? Julianne.
I say Julianne, so I wrote it for blue moon, Julianne, but maybe you don't say it that way, so.
But you underlined the N part.
I didn't mean to.
Oh.
I meant it's inverted.
But see, I would say
Okay, so I would do-
Julianne. I say Julianne.
Yeah, me
So
too.
that was the right underlining, but it would be red for me.
So we could put it in both, because it's a loan word. It's pretty new word borrowed from French, I would say. So we could do something like this. Julienne, is that better for you, Jennifer?
Yeah.
So again, I'm kind of crowdsourcing it, right? One of the so-called students said, what about this word? Another student said, this is how I say it. And we solved that dialogue without it being, going through every single word. Does anyone else have another question about a word that came up?
I have a question. Under green tea, there's PILL. And I'm wondering if it's pill or if the person was thinking peel, which would be green, because I don't know, pill doesn't seem like a cooking word to me. Maybe peel.
Yeah. Whose word is this? Pill. Peel. Anybody? We don't know. We might then ask the question if maybe that person's left the room. We might do something like that, right? And have that as an open dialogue, so we can just mark it here. Otherwise, pill, which is not a cooking word that I know of, except pilling the cat, is kind of like a kind of word, food, right, Jennifer? I could put pill there, okay? So that's a great way to kind of, you can do this without having to go back to the source, okay?
Well, and you might not, the person who put it might, if they know that you've recognized it as a mistake, the student might be embarrassed to say that was their words.
Right. So we don't have to, do a whole investigation. Who put this here? I love that this is anonymous, right? So we can talk about these words with some separation, some remove, and really just be focused on this word. How does this word behave with us? And we have other great tools. Melissa, you mentioned to me that you've been using Youglish. Is this an example where you would use it?
Yeah, to help the students to determine, well, I guess the proper pronunciation would be was Youglish, and it's a little bit more helpful for the more advanced learners to hear the pronunciation of the word, not so much the stress. That was us using dictionary.com, which I'm like not sure whether that would be our usage is correct or not, but we'll can share.
Great. This, by the way, I have the browser extension installed on my computer, so that this is the Blue Canoe Dictionary browser extension. So I have it triggered to use when I shift, and if I use this on my collective, I can do this. Here's shift, click, and it should activate. Let's just see if it works. Well, I'm always trying to do tricks in front of people and then they don't work. Okay, well, when it is working, sometimes it's a little tricky. It doesn't always work on Google Sheets or Google Documents, but sometimes it does, and you can look it up. So that's kind of an interesting one too. Or your Blue Canoe Dictionary or your dictionary that you mentioned. Okay, great. Okay, useful, the idea of using this for get the temperature of the room, see what they know already. Yeah, new idea for anybody that might use it? Yeah, sure. Okay, great. Glad to hear it. All righty.
I gotta leave,
Um,
everybody. Great to see
Oh, thanks for
everybody.
coming, Shirley. Great to see
Happy
you.
birthday, Shirley.
Thank you.
All right. Our next idea that I wanted to share with you was a color vowel scavenger hunt. And this is my sort of last tip before we open up to everybody here. A scavenger hunt comes to me from having looked at a lot of the prepared CVOs that we make for you all. And let me just kind of come back and contextualize where my thought process comes from, okay? When we're over here in the community, I'm sorry, over on the website, and for those of you that are color vowel trained teachers, you know, you can come here and look up beginning vocabulary or workplace vocabulary. And if you open one of these, you will have an editable file. These are all doc files so that you can add words or you can simplify and remove words. Let me show you one. I'm going to add this one. And I've made it editable for a couple of reasons. And that is because we also know that we all speak a little differently. So some words that are in olive might need to move to auburn. If, you know, if Doug, for example, you might be moving words, or you may find that something that is red for me is actually gray for you. So it's editable for that reason, but also because we've tried to stock this up with as many profession words as possible. And you may want to take some out if they're simply not relevant to your learners, right? So lots of reasons you want to look at this as an editable document. However, what I want to draw your attention to now is every group of words, if every kind of topic, you can usually find some kind of feature that is particular, like something that pops out to you about all of the words on this particular list. And I'm going to let you just sit with this list for a minute and we'll see if we can find what pops out. What pops out when you look at this? Meaning something beyond pronunciation, something about the structure of the word or the grammar of the word, if you want to think of it that way. And there's a particular feature that I already know is in here because I've noticed it with Shirley before. So take a look, see if you notice any particular kind of word. They're
Well,
all nouns.
I
Yeah.
don't think CEO is a word.
Is an acronym a word? That's a good question. Do we
Well,
say
it would be,
CEO?
it would be if I said NATO, but if I'm spelling out CEO, I don't think it's a word.
Well, I guess that's an interesting question, Doug. What does anyone else think? Would you put CEO on a CVO? Does CEO belong here? Anyone want to argue for that?
I would find it helpful only because coming from other languages, sometimes they might say CEO, and be misunderstood because not everybody from other languages coming into English know that the last letter is the one that's stressed. So in that sense, I think it's helpful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I agree with you. Any other thoughts on the reasons for including? You know, the way I think of it, Doug, is if it comes out as what sounds like a word before you ever see it, then it's a word. It's an oral word. And how it's written is secondary. It's not irrelevant, but it's secondary, literally. So we have to find, if somebody says, oh, he's the CEO or she's the CEO of this company, and somebody says, what is CEO or CO? Well, we'd better write it down that way. And then you can add the note that it is a chief executive officer, you know, and explain that acronym, that it means the head of the company. But CEO, in the way that we approach spoken language, is a word, I would say. Any other thoughts on that? It'd be fun to do a whole CVO on acronyms, for that matter. That might be our next crowdsourced CVO. You've given me a good idea, Doug. What do you think now, Doug? Do Do you have another thought about that?
Well, I think if I looked at that on a color vowel organizer, I would pronounce it CO. CO. And
Aha,
that would not, to me, that's not the same thing as CEO.
right. Do the capital letters help you at all to know, or if your teacher points out that all capitals are a thing, you know, that we call an acronym?
Well, the idea is that the student could take this paper home and remember how to say the word. So I don't
Right.
know if that would help at all.
Excuse me, don't you have to have the periods, C period, E period, O period to help?
We don't usually use periods in acronyms.
That's true.
So let's
Yeah.
just take a couple of examples, like, I mean, it's interesting, the point you make, Doug, but we need to be able to say all words are created equal, right? All words can be organized. So take NATO, you know, NATO, the North, what does it stand for? North Atlantic Treaty
Right.
Organization.
Sure, in
NATO,
Spanish, it would be OTAN.
right, right.
still,
So here we're
that's-
with NATO. Okay, and we would do it here. And you have a point, you know, that how do they know it's not NATO? So NATO, we'd have to think about that, but we do need to find a way. That's my point, is we can't just say we don't put them on the organizer.
well,
We've got to,
It's because I see this CEO as 3 letters of the alphabet, and each alphabet letter has its own name and it has its pronunciation and color.
aha.
I
So
don't
this is
know.
actually a great way to approach the next question, is if we take a word like, let's take this word business owner. And this actually gets to my question. Business owner, okay? Owner has its own color, but why does business owner belong here in silver pin?
Because it's a compound noun.
Compound noun.
That's right. It belongs there because it's a compound noun. So even though a component of this word, we're calling a compound noun a word because it behaves as one unit, a business owner. Even though owner has and could be, and you could easily do this. You can say, here's owner. Okay, now here's owner. And now we know how to say owner. But when it's in the context, sorry for that capital, when it's in the context of business owner, the stress is on the first of the 2 words, business owner. Business owner. So similarly with CEO, we can also make it known that here's the C, right? Here is, and that's interesting to underline that, right? Here is the E, and here's the O of CEO, but in the context of that word, CEO is a rose word. So you can always keep boiling it down into the smaller components, but we really start getting into phrases almost immediately. So has anybody, now that I've kind of given it away, anybody see what kind of word pops up over and over when we talk about professions?
Is it compound nouns?
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of compound nouns here. Some of them are obvious because they're separated by a space, as in business owner. And some of them are not separated by a space. Can you find an example? And so I, teacher,
Firefighter.
firefighter, great. If I were working, I'm working in a strange format today because I'm on a strange computer. So forgive me, but if I knew this program I was in, which I don't, I would highlight now or ask my students, highlight all of the compound nouns that you see here. And now we're doing a scavenger hunt. So it takes you, the teacher, to sort of look at a given list and say, ooh, there are a lot of adjective noun phrases here, or a lot of compound noun phrases. This one has a lot of compounds. Zookeeper, supervisor, is arguably compound. Lifeguard, firefighter, right? What else? And why is this relevant? What's important about it? How does it relate to spoken English?
It's where the stress goes. So
Yeah, they all have stress on the first syllable. The first word, right? And within that word, you have to figure out which syllable. And so that's interesting. and we could form kind of, that's interesting about these words. And this is all along the lines of being curious about how words behave. You won't find the same number of compound nouns if we look up the CVO about physics. In fact, it's the opposite. In the physics CVO, you're going to find a lot of adjective noun combinations where it's the noun, the second word, that gets the stress. So every group of words, every field, every topic has its own kind of particular way of sounding. And if that's not interesting, what is? It's when you read a story or you read a poem, you say, ooh, that's a really blue poem, or that's a very orange story. The Hungry Caterpillar, the story I always talk about for children, that is a very mustard story. You will find more mustard words in that story per word capita than in any other thing I've ever read, So it kind of, you're like, oh, I could paint a picture of profession words that there are a lot of compounds in there. Just kind of, if this is intriguing to you, let me know. If you want more on this is the kind of thing I could do a whole workshop on. But I thought I'd just point out that every group of words, if they're thematically connected, will have something interesting. I almost can promise you that. So just a thought. Well, I'd like to open this up. We're toward the end of our hour of Fridays at 5, but if you could stay, I'd love to stay because we use the first part for a little bit of housekeeping. And I did invite Melissa and Paula to share a bit of what you've been doing lately. Melissa, you wrote in, Paula, if you both want to open your mics, what did you do recently, Melissa, with your CVOs? You introduced them, is that right?
Yeah, this is the first time they'd sort of seen us use it before early in the year. And then we paused and spent more time on the chart and like the front vowels, the front part of the chart and some of the moving vowels. And yeah, so this is the formal introduction. We have content now, as it's funny you use cooking. It's food poetry. So we had the students read some sample texts that had a lot of unfamiliar words. They were poems and prose mixed together, and they collected words as they did text noticings on those documents. And so today we took all the words from the notes that they took and applied them to Color Vowel for putting them in the Color Vowel organizer. And it's going to live in their folder. So it's like the first one, it goes in our folder, all the procedural stuff. And we wanted them to find the stress and underline it. This is the first, we've been doing the underlining. This is the first time we've asked them to underline and them to find it. So there was a lot of panic. Some of our 10th graders who this is their second year of Color Vowel of like, wait, you always show me the stress, or I always look for, your hand to show me where the stress is. I can't do, like, a little bit of panic. So we thought, well, let's try to give them two types of strategies. So we introduced Youglish because then they can use it in other contexts and to hear the word. But then Paula noticed that dictionary.com, not only does it give a very simple definition, but it has a phonetic spelling in the bracket next to the word. And what they do there is they highlight where the stressed part of the word is. It's bolded. So it's the phonetic spelling, but it was helping us to show students. And I said, this is where I was like, I wasn't sure if this was like a good strategy or not to point this out to students, but it seemed to help them today. So in that bracket, it's breaking the word apart so that there's 3 syllables. And I could show them there's like syllable 1, 2, and 3. Which part from the bold is showing the stress? Okay, now forget that spelling. Let's look at our word. And so for example, teaspoon. So it was highlighting T-E-E in the phonetic spelling. Okay, that's the first part. Ignore the T-E-E. Let's look at our teaspoon word. Here's the T-E-A. Where are the vowels? So which letters do you think we need to underline for the stress? And then like, oh, it's E-A. So this kind of doing that seemed to help as giving especially our newcomer low-level students some kind of mechanism to realize that there's a stress part of the word, if that makes sense, some visual. So we did that today, and then we let the kids take either whichever one they wanted to use, dictionary.com or Youglish, or both, a combination of both, and then take these words like morsel and unleavened was in one of the poems. Piping for piping hot, griddle was another one that was tricky for them, and then try to organize it. And then I could like reference the dictionary.com to be like, but where's the stress? Where did you see that there was the stress? Like, watch me say it. Now, did dictionary.com agree? Did they bold it? And it was kind of a combination of all that stuff. And they they did pretty well as the first time. Again, they all kind of were only able to do 5 or so words in 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so. They're really unsure, really hesitant. And we had some interesting arguments. So we had the word morsel is why I remember it is one girl was immediately it's rowboat oh, and the other girl was immediately it's orange door or, and they were like having a bit of a like argument, and I heard it behind me, and I was like, I'm so excited that you're like having this conversation.
Grappling with rose and orange.
Yeah, and I was like, you're both right. And I think Paula had a similar story with like silver pin, or she has a student who was really struggling with silver pin. So yeah, I kind of passed the same lesson. It's with my co-teacher Paula.
I'll just point out, Paula, you want to add anything there?
I mean, I felt like we had to like add that extra step to show some of them the stress, especially like our newest students and some of our newcomers. They're just starting to hear things as we talk about and use the chart, and so finding stress is really challenging for a lot of our students. So we had to kind of show something visual for them to help some of them if they couldn't find it themselves, if they couldn't hear
what
it yet.
occurs to me listening to you is just once again how, if you look in every dictionary, there's always some kind of a marker of where the stress is, and yet it's the kind of thing that students can basically go through their whole lives not noticing and kind of ignoring or dismissing. And Melissa, when you said, watch me say it, I think that's always been the part missing, is realizing that whether it's a little mark or the bold or anything, that this is where we move our bodies. I find that really, it just came home to me once again, once again, that's where we move our bodies, is where that mark is. So the more we can light up, this is how humans speak English. It's pretty neat stuff. For anybody who is not familiar, thank you now for coming. Not familiar with Youglish, I'm going to go ahead and put that youglish.com over in the chat. And I thought we'd finish up with a quick play on the word julienne. So I typed in julienne here, and we're looking at all accents, not just US or UK, but actually all of the accents they've collected here. I'll do Canada. Why not Canada? Ireland, Scotland, and New Zealand. Let's include everybody, man. So there's Julienne. Let's see what people say. Here we go.
Small dice, Brunois, Julienne, bad day.
Julienne. Here he goes. Next one.
I have not found the perfect Julienne. I have ordered many.
She's fast. Julienne.
Flight entered a violent thunderstorm. Julienne Kopka said,
Julienne, listen to that. Julienne. This is such an interesting word. Let's listen to just 2 more and we'll finish up with this kind of deconstruction.
Yeah, imagine if that was with julienne cucumbers.
Julienne cucumbers. Okay, one more.
Now you can cut these peppers up into julienne pieces or.
Okay, all right, so there's Julienne right there. We heard a lot of sort of Julienne. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. It's a little blurry, but Julienne or Julienne. And both are possible, everybody, depending on what happens after that. If it's julienne carrots, it's more likely to be blue moon julienne carrots. I prefer julienne. When the word julienne's at the end, it's more likely to be a red word. So they're both correct. It's all a question of what we're trying to sort of distribute, if that makes sense. It's called iambic, what are they called? Iambic alternation or iambic reversal. So this is the one where you think about the word Tennessee. Where's the stress in Tennessee? I live in Tennessee. Okay, now put it in the context of the legislature, the Tennessee legislature. Where's the stress in Tennessee? The Tennessee legislature, right? So when there's a word after it and it's becoming an adjective, we try to subconsciously avoid putting two stresses next to each other. So we move, we reverse the secondary and primary stress in the first word from Tennessee to Tennessee, Tennessee walking horse, Tennessee legislature, Tennessee citizen, doesn't matter what's coming up. We'll reverse it when the first syllable of the next word is stressed. There's my little for the day, but look around for those. They happen all the time. So stress is not a static thing. It can hop. Usually it doesn't hop one syllable, it hops two syllables or even three, but not one. And that has to do with stress and unstress. Okay, I'm going off too much on stress. Have a stress-free weekend. Those of you that are in spelling, I'll see you tomorrow. Anybody who's interested still in signing up for the coaching practicum, that starts next week, and I'd love to hear from you. We have students signed up for it, and we don't have coaches so far, so you can get a lot of support if you want to be a coach in that, or audit it. You can audit and see how the course runs without the responsibilities. Dorley, thoughts on coaching?
Can you take volunteers?
Volunteers to coach?
Volunteer
Yeah, we
coaching?
can talk about that. I'm open to ideas.
Yeah.
So let's chat. All right, everybody. Have a great week. Thank you so much for coming. Have a great day. Bye-bye.